So, today we are going to start the last chapter, which is democratic rights. And this is the last chapter for Democratic Politics, Part 1, Class 9 CBSC textbook. Okay. Uh, so, we'll start. Let's see what are we actually going to read in this chapter. Okay, in the previous two chapters, we've looked at the two major elements of a democratic government. We've seen the two major elements of democratic government. In chapter 4, we saw how a democratic uh, so this all in the previous chapter we only talked about democratic government, has to periodically be elected by the people in a free and fair manner. In the chapter 5 we learned that a democracy must be based on institutions that follow, we learned about institutions that follow certain rules and there are procedures. These elements are necessary but not sufficient for a democracy. Elections and institutions need to be combined with a third element, which is, what is the third element? We have elections, yes, we have institutions, yes, but what is missing? The third element which is missing is the enjoyment of rights to make a government democratic. So we have to make our government democratic. We have elections, we have institutions, and the third element, which is the major element, which is known as enjoyment of rights. Even the most properly elected rulers working through the established institutional processes must learn not to cross the limits. Citizens democratic rights set those limits in a democracy. This is what we take up in this final chapter of this book. We began by discussing some real life issues to imagine what it means to live without rights. Just imagine the if your freedoms and everything are taken. How will you able to lead a happy life? This leads to a discussion on what we mean by rights and why do we need them. As in the previous chapters, the general discussion is followed by a focus on India. So we discuss one by one one by one the fundamental rights in the Indian constitutions. Then we turn on, we talk about our fundamental rights, and then we turn on how the rights can be used by ordinary citizens, meaning you and me. Who will protect and who is going to enforce them? Finally, we took a look at how what is the scope of this rights which been expanding. We've always talked about you know this right to life, which is under article 21. The scope of this right, keeps increasing. Whether we in the previous books for social science, we saw that, that how livelihood was taken as a, source of income, for the slum dwellers who were living near the city. And if they were removed from living in the slum areas near the city, then their right to life would be threatened, because their only source of income, their livelihood is through, giving services to the people in the city. So their small services, like doing yeah, wash doing dishes in their houses of the, these people, middle class people, or people and they have, or having a shop, small nook or shop and everything. And that's if their dwelling place, house and everything, so slums are removed there, they will, of course, if they shift, then of course they will even have to take their source of income to another place. So that will be disturbed, because everybody cannot travel 20 kilometers every day for their work. They will try to find work nearby, and that is, indirectly threatens their livelihood. And then of course their right to life, right to life, which is under article 21. So when, we say that the scope of right is expanding, especially, considering right to life under article 21, this understanding of this right has been key, has kept on increasing by increasing every year. Especially when we even talk about, right to free clean environment and everything, that is also under right to life. So have you ever imagined living without rights? Imagine somebody taking up your freedom. Oh, also we haven't done. I do realize that we haven't done the question, so I think we'll do it right now because I wanted to even start a new chapter, and just not because if I would have done only these questions, and it would have just been a 10 minutes video, and it would have been gone out of sync. So yeah, we were, so I'll just finish this part and we'll then continue, on to living a life without rights. Government is a, it's a set of institutions that have the power to make, to implement or interpret laws so as to ensure an orderly life. It is, in its broad sense, government administers and supervises over citizens and resources. So it supervises over the citizens and the resources of a country. Judiciary is an institution empowered to they are empowered to administer justice and provide a mechanism for resolution of legal disputes. All the courts in the country are collectively referred to as judiciary. So all the courts, in the country, all together are called judiciary. Legislature, an assembly of people's representatives. So legislature is basically an assembly of people's representatives with the power to enact laws for the country. In addition to enacting laws, legislators have the authority to maybe raise, to sorry, not maybe, they to raise taxes, adopt the budget and other money bills. Office memorandum, a communication issued by an appropriate authority stating the policy and decision. So it is actually a communication, communication matlab to tell the people and everything, you know by an appropriate, whoever is the concerning authority. They tell the this thing authority stating that the policy and decisions of the government about the new changes and everything. Political institution, a set of procedures for regulating the conduct of government and political life. So political institution is a set of procedures, which is there to regulate the conduct of government and political life in the country. Okay, then we have reservation, a policy that declares some positions, in the government, employment, and educational institution reserved for people and community who have been discriminated against or are, have been in disadvantaged or backward position. State, political association occupying a definite. So what is a state? It has a definite territory, it has an organized government, it has the power to make domestic and foreign policies. Government may change but the state continues. So government can come and go, but the state of the state, India state, or you can say Uttarakhand, or you can say Haryana, you can say Delhi, or you can say uh, Pakistan and China and so on. They all will be there, even if the one government come and changes, the territory will always be there. But the state continues. In the common speech, the term country, nation, state are used in synonyms. So when we talk about simply state at a broader level, we just mean nation. But when we talk at a local level, it can even mean like I told you, like Karnataka, Kerala, and all those different states. If you're elected as a president of India, which of the following decisions can you take on your own? Select a person you like as a prime minister. Dismiss a prime minister who has the majority in Lok Sabha. Ask for reconsideration of a bill passed by the both houses. Nominate the leaders of your choice to the council of ministers. So you can only ask for a reconsideration which is passed by the both houses. Select the person you like uh, as a prime minister. So you cannot just choose whatever prime minister. So this, this thing, this is only valid if it would have been written that in case of, if there is no majority, then if it would have written that, then we would have chosen that it is discretion of the president to choose the prime minister. But since we had other more appropriate option, like ask for reconsideration of a bill passed, then that would be chosen. Who among the following is part of the political executive? So we know home it is a home minister, because secretary of the Ministry of Home Affairs is a civil servant, district collector is a civil servant, and director general of police is also a civil servant. While so these, this and this, they are non-political executive. Okay. if you have any doubt, please comment down, okay? Don't feel shy and everything. Which of the following statements about the judiciary is false? Every law passed by the parliament needs approval of the Supreme Court. Uh, Judiciary can strike down a law if it goes against the spirit. Yes, they can call it null and void. They can call it null and void. Any portion which is beyond the constitution. Judiciary is an independent of the executive. Yes, very true. Any citizens can approach the court if his or her rights are violated. Very true. So every law passed by the parliament needs no, every law doesn't need the approval of the Supreme Court. Only laws which are, for example, which only laws which need interpretation. So only the laws which need proper interpretation, that what was the logic behind this or that, then only they are needed. But now normally the laws can be passed by the both houses. Which of the following institutions can make changes to existing law of the country? So it, of course, Supreme Courts, see, they gave judgment. President is just an nominal executive. So president, I'll just write it here, okay? That president is a nominal executive. He's just there to give signatures, whereas prime minister, more appropriate, of course, the policy comes, the leader, prime minister gives the policy, but it is the parliament who makes changes to an existing law of the country. The majority is required. Match the following with news of the ministry that may have released. A new policy is being made just to increase the jute export of the country. So of course, the commerce and industry, you can see, okay, telephone services will be made more accessible to rural areas. This is Ministry of Communication, and telecommunication and everything, information technology. The price of rice and wheat solid under the public PDS will go down. This is agriculture because it's related to food and public distribution. Pulse polio campaign will be launched. Of course, it is Ministry of Health. This is related to a health issue. The lines of the soldiers posted at high altitude will be increased because it's related to defense and everything. Of all the institutions that you studied in this chapter, name the one that exercises the powers on each of the following. So decisions on allocation of money for developing for infrastructure like roads, irrigation, of course it is parliament who cuts, prepares the budget and everything. Considers recommendation of committee on law to regulate the stock exchange. So, of course, Parliament then decides on a legal dispute between state government, Supreme Court, then implemented this into provide relief. Of course, it's the Parliament and the policies which are there. Why is the Prime Minister in India not directly elected by the people? Because it's they are actually directly not directed. Whoever is an MLA, they're chosen by people only itself, so they're directly elected. But if we say chalo, choose the most appropriate answer and give the reasons for your choice. In parliamentary democracy, only the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha can become the prime minister. Lok Sabha can remove the prime minister and the council of ministers even before the expiry of their term. Since the prime minister is appointed by the president, there is no need for that. Direct election of the prime minister will involve a lot of expenditure. Of course, that's out of all the options, I think last one is most appropriate. So when there are this options, four options given and you have to choose one, then always go for which you feel is the most appropriate one. There might be options one and two options which are confusing and they might look like same, but always go for the one which is most appropriate or near the question asked. Three friends went to watch a movie film that showed hero becoming chief minister for a day and making big decisions in the state. Imran said this is what country need. Rizwan said that this kind of personal rule will without institutions is dangerous. And Shankar said all this is a fantasy. No minister can do anything in one day. What do you, so you can make you can give your reaction. A teacher who was making preparation for a mock parliament, she called two students to enact uh, to act as leaders of two political. She gave them two options. Each one could choose to have a majority either in the mock parliament, Lok Sabha, or in the mock Rajya Sabha. And this choice was given. What would you choose? You can answer. After reading the example of the reservation order, three students had different reaction about the role of the judiciary. What view according to is correct regarding reading the role of the judiciary? So let's see. Srinivas argues that since the Supreme Court agreed with the government, it is not independent. No, it is wrong. It agreed because it was valid. Uh, Anjaya says that judiciary is independent because it could not have given a verdict against the government order. Uh, the Supreme Court did direct the government to modify it. Um, then third option, Vijaya thinks that the judiciary is neither independent nor conformist but act as a mediator between opposing parties. The court struck a good balance between those who support it and those who don't. No, this is wrong. They don't, they are not there for seeing the balance. They are there to give what is right and what is wrong. So is independent because it could not have given a judgment. So of course the second was is most appropriate because he's saying that uh, the valid part of the of the law was taken in, but the Supreme Court also suggested to make some changes and modify, and this thing the government also modified and followed the orders of the court, so they are actually independent, and the uh, judiciary is an independent body. So in this, let's talk about life without rights now. In this book we've mentioned rights again and again. If you remember, we've discussed the rights in each of the five preceding chapters. Can you fill in the blanks by recalling the rights dimension in each chapter? Chapter 1, Chile under Pinochet and Poland under Jaruzelski were not democratic because firstly it was a under Chile was under Pinochet. They were taken by a coup, and whereas Poland, there was a communist party which is ruling, and only one party could stand for the election, and they even have to choose from the leaders they say. So what is, that's not how democracy and rights are to be given. You give only options that are feasible to you. Chapter 2, a comprehensive definition of democracy includes. Chapter 3, our constitution makers constitution. Okay, so democracy, what do you mean by democracy? Of course, public participation, elections, and right to fundamental rights and everything. We've discussed it in detail. Chapter 3, our constitution makers believe that fundamental rights were quite central to the constitution. uh, our constitution maker believe that fundamental rights were quite central to the constitution because everything, whatever, whether one fundamental right is valid or everything, the debates and the constitutional debates, everything explanation is given, and you can again go through the chapters. Chapter 4, every adult citizen of India has a right to vote and to be uh, maybe I think it's to contest in an election, because they are, any person who's above the age of 18 years, they can vote, and any person who's above the age of 25 years, they can stand in the election. Chapter 5, the law is against the constitution. Every citizen has the right to approach the court. Let us now begin the three examples of what it means to live in the absence of rights. So, let's read this. Dear Tony Blair, firstly, how are you? I sent a letter 2 years ago. Why didn't you reply? I was waiting for a long time, but you didn't reply. Please, can you give me an answer to my question? Why is my dad in prison? Why he is far away in the Guantanamo Bay? I miss my dad so much. I have not seen my dad for 3 years. I know my dad has not done anything because he's a good man. I hear every day speak about my dad in a nice way. Everybody speak about my dad in a nice way. Your children spend Christmas with you, but me, my brothers and sisters have spent Eid alone without our dad for 3 years. What do you think about that? I hope you will answer me this time. Thank you. from Anas Jamil El Bana, who's 9 years old, and this is a letter sent in 2005, 7th December. So let's study about the prison in Guantanamo Bay. About 600 people were secretly picked up by the United States forces from all over the world and put in a prison in Guantanamo Bay, an area near Cuba controlled by American Navy. And his father, Jamil Al-Bana, uh, okay, was among them. The American government said that they were enemies of the US and linked to an attack on New York on 11 September 2001. It's actually called also the 9/11 attack, okay. So, in most in most cases, the government of their countries were not asked or even informed about the imprisonment. Like other prisoners, Al-Banna's family got to know that he was in prison only through the media. Families of prisoners, media, or even United Nations representatives were not allowed to meet them. The U.S. Army arrested them, interrogated them, and decided whether to keep them there or not. There was no trial before the magistrate in the US, nor could these prisoners approach courts in their own country. Amnesty International and international human rights organization collected information on the condition of the prisoners in Guantanamo. So, and reported that the prisoners were being tortured in the way that violated the United States laws. They were being denied of the treatment that even prisoners of war must get as per the international treaty. So they were given not even given the treatment which were according to the law of the prisoners of war should get it. Many prisoners had tried protesting against these conditions by going on a hunger strike. Prisoners were not released even after they were officially declared not guilty. Even they were said that you're not guilty and you are free to go. Even then they were not really even if they were not guilty of any crime, or they could not find any strong evidence against them, then also they were not allowed to go. An independent inquiry by the United Nations supported these findings. The United Nations Secretary General said the prison in Guantanamo Bay should be closed down. The US government refused to accept these plays, but the United States government said no, we're not going to close down the government. So citizens, now we know that, just imagine, so we are taking different scenarios that what it would be like if you not have rights. Okay, we've seen the case of Guantanamo Bay, so let's see the citizens right in Saudi Arabia. The case of Guantanamo Bay looks like an exception, for it involves the government of one country denying rights to citizens of another country. Let us therefore look at the case of Saudi Arabia with the position of citizens with the position of the citizens with regard to their government. Consider the following facts. The country is ruled by a hereditary king, and the people have no role in electing or changing their rulers. The king selects the legislature, uh, as well as the executive, who appoints the judges and can change any of their decisions. The citizens cannot form political parties or any political organization. Media cannot report anything that the monarch does not like. There is no freedom of religion. Every citizen is required to be Muslim. Non-Muslim residents can follow the religion in private but not in public. Women are subjected to many public restrictions. The testimony of one man is considered equally that of two women. So just imagine, we say one man, one vote, one value, and here saying that one man equal to two women, his value. That is true not just of how demeaning it is for the women, okay, that they're not even being considered equal to men. That is true not just Saudi Arabia. There are many countries in the world where several of these conditions exist. So we've seen the second case. Now let's see the third case of Kosovo, the ethnic massacre in Kosovo. You might think that this is possible. This is possible is an absolute monarchy, but not in countries which choose a ruler. Just consider the story from Kosovo. This was a province of Kosovo was a province of Yugoslavia, which is a country before it split. Okay, uh, in this province, the population was overwhelmingly ethnic Albanian, but the entire country, Serbs were in majority. But okay, sorry. In this province, the population was overwhelmingly ethnic Albanian. So the majority of the people were Albanian. But in the entire country, Serbs were in majority. But if you talk about the country, then the majority were they belonged were Serbs. So, a narrow minded Serb nationalist, Milosevic, pronounced Milosevic, had won the election. His government was very hostile to the Kosovo Albanian. So, they were very, very hostile, matlab not at all friendly to people who were Kosovo Albanian. Okay, he wanted the Serbs to dominate the country. Many Serb leaders thought that the ethnic minorities like Albanians should either leave the country or accept the dominance of the Serbs. So they said that either you accept a dominance or you go into another country and find shelter. That this is what happened to an Albanian family in a town of Kosovo in April 1999. 74-year-old Batasa Hogza was sitting in a kitchen with a 77-year-old husband staying warm by the stove. They had heard explosions but did not realize that Serbian troops had already entered the town. The next thing she knew 5 or 6 soldiers had burst through the front door, were demanding, "Where are your children?" They shot Izzat 3 times in the chest. Okay, recalls Batisha. With her husband dying before her, the soldiers pulled the wedding ring off a finger and told her to get out. I was not even outside the gate when they burnt the house. She was standing on the street in the rain with no house, no husband, no possession but the clothes she was wearing. Just imagine somebody coming, barging into your house and burning down your burning down your entire house, all everything, whatever you had till now, even your wedding ring, taking it away and burning down everything you had till now, and even shooting your husband in front of you. You've seen your husband dying in front of you. Just imagine that scenario now, mentally how torturing it is. And she only thing that she had now was the clothes she was wearing. This news report was typical of what happened to thousands of Albanians in that period. So this is actually not happened to only her but to all the Albanians who were there in the Kosovo province of Yugoslavia. Do remember that this massacre was being carried out by the army of their own country, working under the direction of the leader who became power to through a democratic election. This was one of the worst instances of killing based on ethnic prejudice. So we've already seen about having prejudice, and how having a negative stereotype about something or someone can deteriorate our mind, and that can even pollute our mind, and make us tend us to take decisions which are not good. Finally, several other countries intervened to stop this massacre. Milosevic lost power and was tried by the International Court of Justice for crimes against humanity. So this person, who was the leader and democratically chosen, he was tried in the court of law against this international court of justice, against creating crimes against our humanity. So we've seen 3 instances. We've seen the case of Guantanamo Bay, sorry. Then we saw the citizens right in Saudi Arabia. Then we saw the ethnic massacre in Kosovo, and you can have it's a broad range where you see life without rights, right? For each of these cases of life without rights, mention an example from India. These could include the following: newspaper reports on custodial violence, newspaper reports on force feeding prisoners to go on hunger strike, ethnic massacre, and any part of the reports regarding unequal treatment of women. So, for unequal treatment of women, it won't be. Okay, so let me think of an ethnic massacre in. Okay, yeah. So, ethnic massacre, if we take the situation of all these, okay, that prisoners are being sent to Bay, and rights of females being violated, their freedom, and ethnic massacre just like Kosovo. Then the three examples actually which come directly pop up into my head is for sending people into jail and everything. I will take the example of Jammu Kashmir, where the army, they take people from the house and they put them into jail under criminal activities, under prevention of uh, prevention of criminal activities act. They put them into this jail for citizens right in Saudi Arabia. So this is the violation of rights and every female rights and everything. We see it in every day, whether we talk about women not being allowed to go after 10 o'clock, on what clothes we wear, and whom should we get married and everything. Our rights are actually being violated. Somebody else is taking decisions on our behalf. And child marriages, that's the citizens rights in consideration of being a woman or a female is being violated. Then when we if we talk about ethnic massacre, then the first thought that comes into my mind is the Gujarat riots. So Gujarat riots is a big example. It's a very controversial topic and debatable also. So that is also there. So yeah, you can also Google it up and link that which one of these can be similar in case of India. Okay.